Vlogger 600. That's neat. Neato.
Good morning and happy Vlogger 600. Seems like a noteworthy number. I also never really took the time to fully celebrate or appreciate the fact that I had been in France for a year, which just transpired a week ago. I think exactly a week ago. Is today the 8th? No. Yes. Today's the 8th. A week ago exactly today. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about my unofficial visa advice because people are always asking me how I got my visa, and I haven't talked about it because I was terrified that somehow talking about it would undermine it. I don't know why, really, but there's some scary things involved. So I figured today I'd talk about the visa process, how I got it, how the system kind of works and how you have to play with it, as well as just reflect on a year in France. But first, I have to teach English. I didn't think I had to teach English this morning, and I didn't. Until last night, my boss called me while I was on my run and asked me to cover for her. So it doesn't matter. Who cares about, let's talk about this visa thing. And back. I got the English teaching done. Now, this story comes to you in two parts. 3, if you're interested in knowing a little bit about the room situation, because Pushan's coming over and he and I are gonna I'm just gonna show him what I'm thinking about the room. Maybe you can get a preview out of it as well. But the 2 parts to the story: 1, the story of how I got my visa, and 2, the story of how I somehow managed to actually keep my visa. And in those 2 stories, there come lots of little tidbits of advice along the way. All of it completely unofficial. Don't take my word for it. You're gonna have to figure all of this out on your own. But hopefully, my story brings you a little semblance of sanity and hopefully some ideas, as well as some ideas of how to get through this alive. First and foremost, I did not get the visa that I applied for. I applied for a compétence et talent, which is effectively a skills and competencies visa. It's a visa that you get for being exceptional. And that's why I didn't think I would ever get it. I had known about this visa for a really long time. It was good for 3 years. It was a magic visa. I never thought that I would qualify for it, but if you know how deep and dark the hole went as far as my life was concerned, and I was stuck in Spokane, it was very much a last-ditch effort to get out of the country. In order to apply for a visa, you have to go to, at least if you're an American, you have to go to the consulate of your region. For me, that was San Francisco. My parents were kind enough to sponsor my trip down, so they paid for my plane ticket. I went and I stayed with my buddy Dave, who's an amazing human being, and you've seen in the vlog a couple of times before. He's the guy we went flying with in San Francisco not too long ago. And I went down and applied. You have to apply in person and put together the whole packet. When they tell you on the website, they will tell you on the website, don't ask me. People like to ask me how to get, don't ask me. Go to the consulate, because each consulate's website has different information based on what you're applying for and everything else. And the numbers of what they expect to bring in, everything might vary. And even though I prepared my packet based on what was on the website, they still didn't take everything that I brought with me. So just be aware, bring everything they tell you to bring on the website. I showed up, and one of the first red flags definitely should have been that when I got up to the window, it was very much like I had an appointment. For 1, you have to have an appointment. For 2, when I wandered in there and finally got to the window, I told him what visa I wanted, and he couldn't find it. He went, he grabbed the binder, he opened the binder up, and he looked through it again. He's like, which visa are you here for? And I was like, compétence et talent? And he was like, yeah, it's not in here. And so I was like, oh, okay, it was on the website. And thankfully he was very, very nice. So he's like, okay, show me. So I walked him through it, and this should have also been a yellow or red flag. It was not linked anywhere on the website. But if you Googled for it, like compétence et talent San Francisco, it would bring up the page for that visa's requirement. So he looked for it. He was like, it's not here. I was like, no, you have to Google it. He Googles it, finds it, and is like, okay, it's here. Copies it, like literally copies it off the webpage, pastes it into a Word document, prints the Word document, and then processes my visa based off what he printed off the internet. Definitely should have been a flag for both of us. Anyways, he goes through the whole thing. My tax return, a letter of application, letters of recommendation, like, I guess the letter of application, I mean my letter of intent, all kinds of stuff. Looks through, he's like, all right, good to go, takes it. He took my money, you had to pay to apply for the visa, took my fingerprints, and they kept my passport. They keep your passport. It's important to know if you're thinking about traveling, because they actually affix the visa inside your passport. And so he took everything from me, and he was like, all right, we'll let you know in a few weeks. The one thing I didn't have was a self-addressed stamped envelope, so I had to go buy one of those. Came back, had turned everything in, flew back, and waited. I waited a couple of weeks before I was finally like, it was supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. So after 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks, I emailed them, I was like, so what's going on? And they sent me a note back saying, oh, we tried to email you earlier, sorry. We don't have that visa anymore, which is, not what you want to hear. But he said, there's a new visa that's available out of the embassy in Los Angeles, and we think you'd qualify for it. And if you're interested, we'll submit you for it. So I was like, yes. Single nicest moment in French bureaucratic history. What you should expect from French bureaucracy is that the response would be, sorry, we don't have the visa anymore. We sent your passport back to you. Good luck. Thankfully, they did not do that. They sent my passport down to Los Angeles. The embassy asked for a couple of more things. We sent them those things, and then all was good. And then I waited for another 2 or 3 weeks before finally receiving my "you're good to go." There's a whole lot more to this story. The timing was very, very tight. I ended up leaving 11 days later for reasons we can discuss another time. I came here, and I didn't even know what my visa was called. Well, I did know that, because it was in my passport. It was called a passeport talent, so a talent passport. It was a talent visa because I'm so talented. Didn't know how long the visa was good for. Like they didn't say anywhere, and they had no documentation on it. Didn't know if I'd be allowed to work. Didn't know anything about it. Like all I knew, it was like a 4-day like happy dance visa, and then I had to go home. I don't know. I needed a change. I needed a life change so badly that even though like I was pretty much entirely out of money, I was just out of options, I didn't know what to do, and I was like, you know what, I have to take this risk. I have to go to France. Like there's nothing for me here, and if that doesn't work out well, then at least, you know, I'm an illegal vagrant in France now. So I got here and I had to start figuring out what to do next on my own. Like I knew that I needed to go to the prefecture. They gave me no instructions, nothing. So I started going around trying to figure out, okay, I'm gonna have to pay some taxes, I'm gonna have to whatever. I bounced around, and this is another reality of life in France. There is little to no information on the internet about pretty much anything. French bureaucracy is the pinnacle example of this. There was nowhere online where I could find out how much I had to pay in taxes, what the exact place I was supposed to go was, nothing. I went to my mayor's office, asked them, they gave me a sheet with one thing on it. I called that place, they sent me somewhere else. Those guys sent me somewhere else. I ended up at one of the prefectures. You can go back, if you go back and watch my vlog, you'll see me going to a prefecture in the 17th, I think, to start. Went there 3 times just to start the process, and each time they're like, you're missing one thing, come back again. And I would have to wait in line for like 4 or 5 hours each time. So make sure to bring a snack and maybe sunscreen if it's sunny outside, and an umbrella if it's rainy. You might be standing outside for a couple of hours at a time. Just be prepared for that, and bring a good book. So I went through that whole process. Then they moved me to the prefecture downtown, which is where I expected to end up. That's where I've gone the last few times. And that was a miserable experience too. Now the thing about getting in there, I mean, if you go back and you watch them, you can see that experience. Basically it's just going back in repeatedly, them being like, we don't think you have enough documentation. They're actually really, really mean to me. At one point they were like, we don't think you deserve to be here. We don't understand why they gave you this visa. Why are you here? Get out of here. Basically, they were jerks, and they're notorious jerks. There are a couple nice ones there, but some of them not so much. The thing about French bureaucracy in general, but especially with the administration, the people that have some power over you, part of it is like a cultural test. They want to see that you can handle French bureaucracy. So it's like a catch-22. They're basically like, we want to see that you can handle French bureaucracy, so we're going to give you the full French bureaucratic treatment, instead of just everybody being like, you know what, we're just going to be nice, and then it would all be over. Instead, they're just like, hey, let's just repeat this cycle of pain, just because we got to make sure you can withstand the cycle of pain. It's awful. So you go in, you sit down, and they look at your dossier, and the one thing you want to make sure is that your dossier has everything in it. Like we said before, this can be difficult because sometimes there are things they're asking for that are very hard to come by, and maybe you just didn't get it in time, maybe you just don't have it. You're going to have to wing it as best you can. If you have extra documentation, things that support your case, things that you think make your case stronger, will help you out, keep that hidden. It's very, very tempting to bring out extra stuff and be like, look at how good I am, I brought you more stuff. They won't care. They almost guarantee they will not care about that stuff. If they do, it's not going to help you that much, because what's going to happen is if they look at it, what you want to have happen is they look at it and they say, hey, you're missing this one thing. Odds are good they give you a list of 10 things, and they're asking for an 11th thing that wasn't on the list. And when you say that wasn't on the list, they'll be like, well, you should have known anyways. So when they ask you for item number 11, hopefully you have that stashed in your bag, and you can put on a little bit of a panic. Be like, oh no. You can ask them about it a little bit, give it a little time, help them to feel the sense of their power over you for just a moment, and be like, well, let me look, I don't know, you know, like, and oh yeah, I do, and then hand that in. If you can do that a couple of times, you'll actually be, I mean, you can't guarantee you'll be golden. Unofficial advice, remember. No guarantees here, but it definitely helps a lot to, I mean, there's just that level of like that expression of power that goes back and forth between the two. If you don't believe me, ask any of the French people in the comments below. This is just a normal thing that you have to deal with here. So make sure that you have that. The other thing is that there's, like we said, the French system goes in cycles, and there's cycles that are never broken, and there's cycles that are impossible to get into. So for example, with this one, I don't know if I should admit this. I'm not going to tell you specifically what I did, you know, because paranoia. But the easy example is, in order to get a bank account, you need to have an address. But in order to have an address, you have to have a bank account, right? What do? You have to find a way to break into that cycle. The way that works usually is you find a friend, somebody who's willing to sign on and say, yes, they're living with me, I'm their landlord, whatever. You use that to go get your bank account, and then you come back. Is this Prashant?
Yeah.
Welcome, you found it.
I got candy.
Oh, you got candy?
Yeah.
What is this?
Tamarind candy.
Tamarind candy? Oh,
From Bali.
here, I'll take the whole, all of it.
She was nice though.
Oh, she is really nice.
Yeah.
Prashant, everybody.
What's up?
I was just explaining how in the French system you have cycles. Like you have catch-22s. So what I was just explaining was that you need a bank account to get an address, but you need an address to get a bank account.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
And you need like a full-time job to get an apartment, otherwise you're screwed.
Yeah. So in those kind of situations, what you do, what I was explaining is you'd find a friend like Prashant who would say, oh yeah, Jay's totally living with me. And I would take that letter and go to the bank, get the bank account, and then I would go get an apartment with the bank account, being like, yeah, I totally have a bank account, and then you're covered. And any of those situations, anytime you break into this system, you need to make sure that you go back and cover your ass in the end, because somebody's gonna find that and get you for it.
You know what, for apartment hunting, which is like, as a freelance, I was never able to get an apartment, because you have to have all these salary, consistent salary forms for the last 3 years. And people, what they do is they Photoshop fake salary.
I'm so not surprised.
Yeah. So people do that all the time. Don't be worried about it. I haven't done it, so
Right. I have definitely not done that. That's out of him. But I will say,
it's a good. I mean, everyone does it. So
that's the thing. You have to find. The problem is that the French system is literally made to be impossible. So the French response is to cheat the system, which actually is even more intense when you go to the south, like towards Nice, because that culture actually values lying to a degree. And so it's a game, and you want to see, they'll lie to your face and repeat it multiple times just to see if you'll stand up for yourself. And then they'll be like, all right, you know what's up. And then they'll let you through. That happens a lot as well. So anyways, that gives you a good idea. If you're going to try and get into, if you're going to try and get your visa, you're going to go to the prefecture or whatever, you might have to find a way. I'm not endorsing cheating whatsoever.
Neither am I. I was just pointing it out.
But it's just something that happens from time to time because it's a forced necessity sometimes. Anyways, welcome to Mi Casa.
Yeah, thanks. Cool.
Yeah, you've never been here before, huh?
But I feel like I know it because I see this a lot.
It's kind of funny to stand here and look back at it, actually, because I'm used to seeing it on film, too.
Is this full?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
You're ready to go. Ready to get popped. We're going to talk about the apartment now.